Welcome. This is episode 149 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try to F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. Today, we're talking with stunt expert, stunt choreographer, stunt master turned director, Nick Powell. Nick has been stunt choreographer and worked on the stunt team on films such as Three Musketeers, Resident Evil, X-Men Last Stand, Cinderella Man, 28 Days Later, Bourne, Identity, GoldenEye and Braveheart. And he has since directed 2 feature films, both starring Nick Cage, aka Nicolas Cage. That was Outcast, which starred Hayden Christensen as well as Nick Cage, and the latest film he's directed, which is out now, called Primal. This feature film also stars Famke Janssen, Kevin Durant, and a shit ton of animals and fights galore. It's an absolute delight of a film. It's so much fun, and Nick delves into details about working with Nicolas Cage, about working with animals and CGI and the fights, and his whole journey from being a stuntman to a stunt choreographer to directing stars such as Nicolas Cage. I am Giles Alderson. I'm the director of The Dare, which is out on March the 3rd. I shit you not, that is 2 weeks from now. It is only out in America, in the US, but if you're listening in the US, which I know some of you lovely listeners are, you can get that movie. This is the movie I've talked about from the very beginning, and finally it can be in your hands. Finally it can be in your eyeballs. And it's interesting I talk eyeballs because someone might lose their eyeball in the middle of this film. It is a horror film. It is a bit gory at times, but it is got so much heart and love, and I can't wait for you to see it. Please support, do whatever you can, let me know what you think. 2 weeks, I am heading over to LA. I've booked my tickets. I am going to meet some agents and managers and just talk about the film, be there. We've got some midnight screenings on the 6th of March, so if you're in LA, link to all that will be coming up very shortly, so do come say hello and do come support. I would love it. That's The Dare, out March the 3rd. I can't believe I'm saying that. That feels ace. It feels ace, finally. Wow. Anyway, so this episode is sponsored by Screencraft. Thank you so much for sponsoring this week's episode with Nick Powell. We're talking about the fellowship this week because they do a screenwriting fellowship, which is a fantastic opportunity for you to put your screenplays in, and if you win, you will get signed with literary managers. There is no question about it. All last year's winners did, and that is winners, so it's not just one. Past Screencraft winning writers have been hired by producers. They've optioned their projects to major studios and signed with top representatives such as CAA, WME, United Talent Agency, and so many more. And not only that, you'll receive ongoing professional support and a special trip to LA for meetings, mentorship, and personal introductions to key entertainment studio executives. I could do that. It sounds like my trip. Yeah, I should apply right now. So if you haven't yet, you've got a brilliant script ready to go. The deadline at the moment is February the 29th. Get it in, screencraft.org. Link to that is in the show notes. The next Make Your Film event has been announced. We have our first guest. The date for it is the 25th of March. Put it in your diaries. It's the first Wednesday we've done. It is in London, so if you're not in London, then fly over. Why not? It's a brilliant event, sold out pretty much every one so far, and the last one was. And we have guests, and we sit down and we talk about filmmaking. It's like the podcast, but live and better, because you're in the room with us, and you can ask questions, and you can meet everyone, and you can network, and you can hand out your business cards, or you can stand in the corner and someone will come and say hello to you. Because filmmakers are lovely, and that's what we do, and we help and support each other. So come on down, March the 25th. First guest announced is Simon Cox, the fantastic director and writer and producer and filmmaker extraordinaire of Invasion Planet Earth, which took 7 years to make and get to the big screen. Super exciting to have him as our first guest. More guests to be announced very soon. Early bird tickets are available now for you because you're listening to this. They're only £7. If you're in London, you need to be there. Why would you not? Link to that is in the show notes. Make Your Film is sponsored by Performance Insurance. If you haven't got insurance for your films and your promos and whatever, then you're silly. You really, really should. And I can't recommend Performance Insurance enough. You just have to have insurance. If something goes wrong, you are done for. It ain't just the cost of a camera. That could be £20,000. Could be someone's injury. That could be so much more. Anyway, get insurance. It's vital. It's vital. You want 20% off the Raindance course? They have their no-nonsense intensive film directing career weekend masterclass with the fantastic Simon Hunter. He charts the path you need to take from a nobody to a working film director. That is on the 29th of Feb and the 1st of March, and you can get 20% off. So 20% off for you because you're listening to this podcast, you amazing people. And you are amazing. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all your comments and your support. It means the world to me, especially in times of darkness, middle of the night is what I'm talking about, when it is tough to edit and put it up and do it. And every week we still do it because we want to get this out. We want to do it. So if you do like this, do support if you can. We're about to make the website even nicer, so it's easier for you to find past people who've been on. We're going to have it labelled as directors and writers and special links for like finance and etc. and etc. And we're going to have merch. Oh yeah, we're going to have t-shirts and mugs and shit like that if you want it on your desk. Don't know why you would, but why not? Hey, support if nothing else. I totally undersold that. Okay, I really want to get to this week's episode because it's just a delight. It was so much fun chatting to Nick. I've got a couple of shout outs to do just before that. It is to Jonathan Hurrigan and everyone at the London Film School. Big shout out to you. Thank you for all your support. Also to Will Thorne. He has his brand new film on Greenlit that he is looking for money for, and it is called One Man and His Shoes is the definitive Air Jordan documentary about those shoes. Will, big shout out to you. Good luck with your crowdfunding. If you want to support him, link is in the show notes. That's on Greenlit. It's a wonderful platform for filmmakers, that one. Shout outs also to Mark Kenny and to Jessica Dowse, who wrote to me. She's making her first short film after listening to this podcast, and with so much help from her friends and family. Best wishes for you to make your first film. I love that. Let me know how you get on. And a shout out to Kate Madison, who is crowdfunding right now for the second season of Ren, The Girl with the Mark. It's a fantastic action thriller series. It is so well made, and she's had over 50 million hits. That says it all. She is now crowdfunding for the next season. Do support her. Link to that is in the show notes. And as a little treat for you, she will be joining us on next week's podcast to tell you all about how she did that, how she managed to get over 50 million hits. It is impressive, and she's an impressive filmmaker, so do tune in next week for that. Okay, here it is. Filmmakers Podcast episode with the fantastic stunt choreographer and director Nick Powell. Enjoy. Honestly, thank you so much for joining us on the Filmmakers Podcast.
Absolute pleasure.
This podcast obviously is about helping filmmakers. That's what we are. We're all filmmakers ourselves, and we chat about how our guests made their films and how they went about them and how they got them made. And obviously we're here to talk about your fantastic new film, Primal, starring Nicolas Cage, which is really, really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So much fun.
Great, thank you.
What I wanted to do is to jump back and actually talk about your stunt work and how you actually moved into the world of directing from stunts and how you got started, really, because I think that'd be really interesting for our listeners.
Right. All the way back to when I was younger.
Why not?
It's a long way back, I can tell you. But my sort of journey in this industry, I went to drama school in London.
Did you? Which one did you go to?
I went to East 15 initially, and then I went to the drama studio.
Yes. I went to drama studio as well. This is crazy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I went there in 1999.
Oh, I was there well before you. I can't even remember when I was there, but it was in the late 80s.
This is funny. I had another director on recently, a producer as well, Sarah Megan Thomas, and she also went to Drama Studio London. Neither of us knew. How funny. We've all moved into producing and stuff. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, initially I was, I trained as an actor and came out trying to get acting work, and as I'm sure a lot of young actors know, and I'm sure yourself, and it's pretty tricky when you're starting out. So I was getting a little bit of theatre here and there, and the odd small role on television and things like that. And one theatre show I was doing, there was some acrobatic work in the show, and one of the guys who was doing the acrobatic work was training to be a stuntman, and that seemed really interesting to me because as a youngster, I'd sort of done a lot of martial arts and a bit of fencing and things like that. So I thought that could be really interesting. And he told me what the requirements were for the British Stunt Register, which is very regulated, and I think it's even more regulated now. But you needed to get a minimum of 6 qualifications from a group of about 18 different qualifications they give you. So you needed a sort of martial arts black belt. You needed to get one of 3 water elements, sort of life-saving or scuba diving or something like that.
Yeah, all the fun stuff.
All that stuff. And it seemed like fun to me. So I basically, started training as an actor, not that much work. So I started training in my off time when I wasn't acting or doing theatre and stuff. And basically, within a couple of years, based on all the other stuff that I'd done, I got the qualifications together, applied to be a stuntman, and got accepted onto the British Stunt Register.
That's incredible, mate. Wow, well done. You must have enjoyed it, though. There must have been something in you that loved the actor in you. Throwing yourself around and, getting not hurt, but that the fear and that of not having the fear, I suppose.
Well, I'd always liked sort of, I'd liked the action movies and basically, actors that could do a lot of their own action. And so initially, from my point of view, what was nice was I was getting a lot of work where they would call me and say, hey, we need a stuntman that can act, because a lot of stuntmen are not trained actors, and, they're not so good at dialogue and things. And I'd obviously, I was an actor. I'd acted for a few years. And so now I was getting the jobs where basically they wanted a young guy who could actually do his own stunts, an actor who could do his own stunts, or a stuntman that could, put a little bit of dialogue down on screen.
Totally. And you did some great films early on with the Batman and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. They're Braveheart as well in there. Incredible sort of start, I suppose. I mean,
it's not, it always looks a lot better than it is in terms of if you say you're on the Batman movie and then when people sort of really go, well, what did you do on it? And you go, well, I was one of Jack Nicholson's henchmen for about a week, running around shooting guns and falling over. And that's really all I did on the Batman movie. Braveheart was the first real, I had a few weeks work on the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I was doing a lot of other stuff here and there, TV and things. But the first big break for me, because initially it was a mix of acting and stunt work. So, I got offered the National Theatre. I got offered a year's contract at the National Theatre and went in there. And as you know, as an actor, the offer was, as an unknown, they pay so little money, or at least they did, 30 years ago or so when I was offered it. And so as much as I wanted to do that, I couldn't really afford to pay the rent. So I ended up saying, thanks very much, but I'd love to do it, but can I come back in a few years when I've put a bit of money in the bank as a stuntman? And I started doing stunt work and then basically never really went back to acting because it took off. And Braveheart was the first real thing. Simon Crane was the stunt coordinator on that movie, and he was an acquaintance of mine at the time, and he asked me to do all the fight sequences and choreograph all the fights and sword work and everything in the movie. And so, I was on that movie for, I can't remember, 4 or 5 months. And doing all the fights, and that one sort of changed things for me. That was a nice, sort of real introduction into doing bigger and better stuff.
It must have done. I suppose that, like you say, then led on to you sort of having that reputation of knowing what you're doing. During that time, did you always want to direct? Did you have a hankering at that point that you would potentially go on and make your own movies?
Well, I directed some theatre when I was at drama school. We directed a little sort of a play in London, and it just ran for a few nights. Just one of those little things that you do as a drama student. And I'd really enjoyed it. And basically, for me, it was the progression from sort of being a stuntman to being a stunt coordinator and then being a sort of an action director. And while I was doing the stunt coordinating, action directing, I mean, I got offered a number of things because producers would see. I mean, I did a number of shows like Casualty in England and EastEnders and things as a stunt coordinator, just the sort of jobbing stunt coordinator. And you'd be on set and the producers would see you working and they'd go, wow, you really know how to direct here. And they'd offer me, I got offered an EastEnders and a couple of episodes of Casualty and things as a director. But at that time, I didn't want to do those episodic things. I was kind of hoping to sort of have a break as on a reasonable feature or something sort of really interesting. And I directed a lot of things on television shows. Like there was a TV series, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. The TV series, the first one that they did, it was 6 episodes.
Yes,
and I directed a number of days of the main unit on those shows. When directors were sort of let go or however things went, and I took over for 3 or 4 days of directing the main unit and really enjoyed it and thought this is something that I could get my teeth into. And it was talked about for a number of years, but it's always difficult. I say it's always difficult. Some people obviously have a lot more luck than other people and they get a great break at the very beginning, and their first job as a director turns out to be a fantastic break and it happens really quickly. Whereas mine took about 8 or 9 years of producers saying, hey, we want you to direct this movie, and then the finances fell apart or the actors fell apart or so there was about 8 years where I was turning down a lot of action directing in order to get movies going that never happened. I mean, I would sort of spend a year or two trying to get a movie going, turning stunt directing jobs down, and then finding out the whole movie had collapsed. So then I'd go back and do a bit of action directing, and then another movie would come up, and then that one falls apart, and so on. So it took a while.
Yeah, it does. And I've had a few movies fall apart on me. What for you, from for our listeners, be really interesting. What do you think the main reason they fall apart? Is it a talent one day? Is it money the next?
It's a lot of different reasons, but I honestly think there's a lot of people who have high hopes without it actually being backed by very much. There's a lot of producers out there that, they think if they have a script and they have a director, whether the directors are, obviously if they had a director who was named Christopher Nolan or, or Quentin Tarantino, then the movie will probably get made somewhere down the line.
Yes.
But if they've got a director that's, come out of film school and directed a short or maybe directed, a sort of a genre movie, those guys like myself, they're not a guarantee that the movie's going to get made. They're not. People are not turning around going, well, this guy just won an Oscar. We'll give him money to make a movie. So it's a lot harder than people think. When you have a script, you have a director, you can even have an actor. But if that actor is not completely bankable in the current market, and the market changes very rapidly sometimes. And then you're dealing with agents, especially in Los Angeles, who a lot of them, think they're more important than the people they represent. And, they're not even interested in talking to their clients. Even if you have the money to make the movie, and you go for an actor and they go, well, who's directing it? Where's the theatrical release? And you go, we don't have a theatrical release guaranteed yet. It's an independent. We're hoping to do this. These are the sales agents. These are the distributors. No, thanks very much. But, and then you wait a month or 2 months and you hear nothing back, and you find out that they haven't even given the script to their client.
Yeah. So
there's so many different reasons why things fall apart. And even the one I've just done, with Primal, I was told that, they sent me the script, asked if I liked the script and would be interested in directing it. I said, it needed a little work, but, and probably 30 pages cut out of it because it was long at the beginning, but, that was all agreed on. And they said, well, if we can get an actor that means enough to Lionsgate, then we've got a deal, and we greenlit straight away. And, I read the script and thought about Nick Cage straight away, and I know Nick, so I approached Nick, and within 3 days I'd brought Nick on board. He'd said yes, he'd signed up, and the producers were, yeah, this is great, we're greenlit. And I said, okay, when do we start? Well, it's going to take 3 or 4 months to get the paperwork together. I said, okay. And
sure.
8 or 9 months later, and the paperwork's still not together and the finances are not there. And then something else happens, and then you change your shooting location because it's better tax credits in this other place. And then you go to that shooting location, and then there's a hurricane and they still don't have their money. And then you move out of that location because the hurricane was massive and there's nothing can be done for a month. Then you go back and start prepping again, and the money's still not there. And then, you take another 2 months off, and all the time you're sort of sitting there with no money coming in. And eventually, things move around, and some producers leave the show and other producers take over who are more effective and actually make things happen. And all of a sudden you're making the movie a year after you thought it was going to happen.
Do you know what? I so well explained that. It does happen so often. People forget that. They think, I'm going to make my first movie or I'm going to be in the world and it's going to happen. And suddenly it's happening. We've got a name, but it falls down all the time. It's a miracle movies get made. It just is. So I totally get why you'd say, well, I'm going to keep doing my stunt work. And, your film credit in the stunt world is huge. It's just some amazing stunt work. And it's an incredible achievement. So first, before we get to Primal, how did Outcast come about? Because that's your first, your debut movie as a director, starring Nick Cage as well. Did that come from because you knew him before, you'd worked with him on something?
No, there's a funny story. I'm sure all stories are relatively funny, but I with this movie, basically, again, I got sent a script from a producer, asked if I was interested. And at the time, the script was basically one night. A knight, as in, the Knights Templar, was so disillusioned, had PTSD, and basically wandered off across Asia and ended up helping, a sort of disparate Chinese family who turned out to be the king's daughter, and the brother was trying to kill, that's sort of the typical Shakespearean style story. It turned out that the script originally was written for the UK, the Middle Ages in the UK, but because of the funding situation, they thought it would actually be easier to get funded if it was a Chinese story. So the initial script, which was, I think, a better script, a lot more sort of gritty and down-to-earth kind of one that I would much prefer to have watched myself, was then rewritten completely for the Chinese market. And then we got Hayden Christensen on board, and the movie was budgeted at around $15 million to shoot in China. We then had problems with finances and everything else again. And the producers, distributors at the time thought that they needed another big name in order to make it a viable international proposition. So they were working with Nick Cage at the time and thought, hey, if we bring Nick onto this project, then basically we can get it made as a $20 million movie. Nick looked at the script, which didn't really have a role for him at the beginning, and it was kind of cobbled together a little bit, but he thought it could be an interesting proposition. We chatted on the phone. We got on very well, and he thought, well, if you sort of... if you think it'll work for me and everything else, and you can make this really work, then okay, I'm interested. So, we sat down, talked about it, rewrote the script. And basically, at the time, we had a Western producer who has produced a lot of big movies, and that was actually Jeremy Bolt, who was the big producer. All the Resident Evil movies and the Three Musketeers and
Death Race,
And Jeremy was the main creative producer, and between myself and Jeremy, we were getting a lot of stuff done and making things happen. And then, but in order to get the film financed, we ended up having to give creative control to the Chinese producer, because he put the majority of the finance up and wanted creative control. And so the script got rewritten according to his aesthetics and dramatic sensibilities, which was nothing to do with anything that we were really interested in. And at that point, we were too far down the line to walk away. As much as I'd actually, at that point, to be honest with you, I'd kind of gone in and said, this is not the movie I signed on to do. And, but we were so far along that you basically do what you can, make it as good as you can. And so that was the story. Again, it was not, it was not something that I'd originally signed on to do. It was changed considerably. And then even after we'd shot it, our Chinese producer went in and recut a lot of the stuff that we'd put together and changed it dramatically from what we had. So Nick Cage and I and Hayden, we all sort of were a little disappointed in the experience of that movie, but we'd sort of all got on very well together. And Nick, at the end of it, said, let's do something else where it's a lot more controllable, where we can actually do something and make a good movie. And so we stayed in touch. And I was looking for something else to do with Nick that wasn't going to be so sort of disappointing on so many levels.
I understand, yeah.
So when Primal came across my desk, it was basically Nick would be perfect for this, and
for sure.
And I bringing Nick to the table, as I said, it was Nick that greenlit the movie, of course. But again, it still takes a lot of time and trouble to get these things together.
Of course it does. That's a really interesting story. How was it then when you first spoke to Nick? Obviously you'd worked with some big actors during your time, but now this is you as a director and in a way a sort of untested director. Was that conversation with Nicolas Cage, was that, was it easy for you to say, this is how I'm going to direct it, how I'm going to do it?
I think, relatively speaking, yes, simply because having directed a lot of action, and sort of on some fairly, reasonably successful movies and done well from that side. From a technical point of view, I was reasonably well qualified. And also, having been an actor, I think that's where a lot of people who transition to directing have a little bit of a lack of sort of understanding. I mean, when I did Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, it was very interesting because, I had that conversation with Tom Cruise where he turned around and he says, you're telling me more about the character than any other stunt coordinator or anyone that I've ever had working on this side of things. What is it that, and I told him, I used to be an actor. Oh, that's where it comes from. Yeah, you can see. It's very obvious that you know how to sort of guide actors. It's not just about throw a punch, do this. There's a whole reasoning behind it. Why is the character doing this at this point? And so basically using the acting elements and the training I'd done and the work I'd done as an actor combined with the technical side, I think it kind of, allowed me to sort of come at it from two different sides.
I think it's really interesting to hear because a lot of directors get scared of working with actors, especially bigger actors, but even any actor. And I always say it's so important to go do some acting classes, go be in the room, understand what actors go through, because then it'll make you a better director because they're not a strange beast. They just want you to help them get a better performance and you have to guide them.
100%. Some actors need more guidance than others. Some actors are sort of more insecure than others. Some of them don't really want much guidance at all. They know, they'll ask you what the sort of parameters are in terms of where is this in the script? What have I just done before? What have I just done after? And how should I be? And then all of a sudden they've got everything together. And if you have a really experienced actor, I mean, someone like Nick Cage, he'll push things and he'll try different things and he'll ask you, hey, if I do this, what do you think? And sometimes you've got to say no because it doesn't fit in with the rest of what you think is going to happen in the scene before or after that you haven't shot yet. But overall, these guys, somebody as professional as Nick and a lot of other actors I've worked with, they're so well informed about the project and they know everything about it, what's happened just before, what's happened. And the first time I met Nick, he came into the trailer. We were doing a costume fitting on an Outcast, and it was a few days before we started filming, and he wasn't up for another few days after that, and he knew every line of dialogue, literally every line in the script. He could, we'd turn to a page, he'd just look at it quickly, and then he knew the whole, because he'd already sort of got that dialogue down. He knew everything about the character that he was trying to put together. And obviously, we'd spoken on the phone quite a bit before that. But basically, I remember sitting in the first real sit down with him, going through the costume and everything, and then he'd go, on the third scene that I do, where the guy's doing this and he's doing this, and he said, what if I did it like, and he knows all the dialogue, and he went straight through it, and I went, yeah, but. And then we'd change a line here, change a line there to fit in with his sort of way of thinking and how better to sort of, impart what we were trying to impart dramatically to the audience.
I agree. That's so lovely, isn't it? And, Nick Cage does have the stories and stuff like that. So it's so nice to hear that you're saying, no, it was brilliant to work with him. He was very collaborative and wanted to, work with the director and find those moments. And that's really special. And what's really, really great about this is he wanted to work with you again on the next film or find something for me. Which brings us on perfectly to Primal. Now, obviously, the script landed on your desk. Were you at a position where scripts are landing on your desk quite a lot?
They do, but a lot of the time they're not funded. It's a case of, hey, would you like to direct this if we can get it going? And
you're like, well, yes, of course, get it going, and let me know. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, last year I was up to direct two. I was supposed to direct 2 movies last year, one of which I ended up having to pull out at the last minute because of other circumstances, and that actually did get made. And another one where, the producers basically messed around so much for 5 or 6 months that I ended up sort of walking away from it. But it's kind of one of those again where, people tell you, oh, we've got this, we've got that, this is happening, that stuff. And unless you really know them, you don't know what people are, whether they're telling you the truth or whether they're just, as a lot of producers have told me, producers are professional liars. I mean, they have to be in order to get things made. Even some of the distributors that, on Outcast, I was told for about 8 to 10 months, oh, it's happening next month, 100% it's happening next month. So I turned down Wolverine or whatever movie I was turning down at the time. Yeah. And, it's like nothing happens. And then 2 months later, it's another movie comes in, and Angels and Demons, I think, was one that I turned down. And it was, no, it's happening, Nick. If you walk away from this to go and do some action directing, then, this whole movie falls apart. And so you don't take the other job, which would definitely put money in the bank and be a big credit. And then you wait, and then, a year's gone by, and they turn around, and you say, hey, you've lied to me for a year. Yeah, I know, but it's the only way to get this movie made is. And so after a while, you realize that what people are telling you is not always a lot of it's what you want to hear, but it's not exactly what is a truthful, as truthful hyperbole as.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of get a strong bullshit detector, especially as us being British. We're very used to that. If someone says something's happening, it's more likely happening than not. Whereas if someone says no, it's a no. As America, it's a lot more, it's happening, man. Just, it's going. And I think that is we kind of get used to that a little bit, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've directed a few movies now, and I don't think I've ever had someone that has been completely truthfully from the very beginning. It's never happened. It's always been one of those, and especially if you're bringing an actor like Nick. I mean, Nick's a friend of mine, and we'll probably do another movie together. We've got another project we're talking about at some point down the line. I'm supposed to do another project this year that I'm hoping will happen, but and then maybe again something with Nick down the line, and but it's one of those things where you sit, you chat, you talk about it, and then someone tells you, okay, we can get this made right away, but that realistically it's probably sort of 8 to 10 months away. The way that when they say right away, they mean not right away, and when they say soon, it means maybe a year down the line.
Got you. Yeah, that's great advice for filmmakers out there. So in that time, you'll think and pick and choose which jobs to do based on a hunch or based on what you think might actually happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a case of I'm trying to make sure that the next project that I do is a sort of a, the script is really solid from the beginning, and more of a dramatic piece than an action piece, if possible. I'm trying to sort of make sure I'm not seen just as a guy who directs action movies.
Okay.
But that again, it's difficult because as people pigeonhole you. It's one of those, and it doesn't matter whether you were, if you haven't done anything before, but the first movie that you do is a sort of a love story, then you're the guy that does love stories, even though you've never done anything else before. And you could have just as easily done a thriller, but yes. You did a love story, so you're the guy that directs love stories the same way that there are guys that direct musicals, there are guys that direct, martial arts movies, and if you're lucky, you have a career where you have some versatility and some variety as a director, rather than just being a guy that does only one genre of movies.
Yeah, and it's great to try and get out of that box for sure. So Primal, do you want me to read the pitch, or do you want to do one? Because then I'll play the trailer when the podcast goes out.
You go for it, absolutely.
Okay, so Frank, played by Nicolas Cage, is in the Brazilian jungle, and he's caught a 400-pound white jaguar. He ships it on the same ship as an arrested assassin. The assassin breaks free and then frees the animals.
What is it?
White jag, maybe 400 pounds. I have hit the mother load. Put it mother load. I think this one's going to the highest bidder.
So nice to see American faces.
Marine Commando.
Under arrest for crimes against humanity.
Seizures can happen without warning. My radio will be on 24 hours.
Dr. Taylor.
The man that we're looking for is a mercenary assassin, a professional killer.
Loeffler let most of the animals out.
There's only so many places he can hide.
Who says he's gonna hide? I'm going hunting.
Government wants him alive.
If you see Loeffler, put a bullet in him. And the same goes for the cat.
You kill my cat, I'll blow your head off. Got a real nice cage for you.
Rated R.
It is just a delight of a film. It's Nicolas Cage as you kind of want him and expect him. He's unhinged, but also controlled. You've got animals roaming about, attacking people, and you've got a wonderful assassin, played by Kevin Durand, who just goes nuts, and it's amazing. So let's talk then about, the action in this and getting those performances and working with these animals and, how you got all that together, because it's a big achievement. It's amazing.
Well, given the fact that it took quite a long time to get going, and then eventually the budget was sort of not really enough to do it the way we wanted to do it. And another sort of fun thing for filmmakers here is that when they tell you, how many days you have to shoot at the beginning, you don't always believe what they're telling you unless you're with a studio or someone, because as an independent, I was asked initially, again, sent the script, well, how many days do you think it'll take to do this? And I said, I think maybe 35 as an independent. We can shoot this in 35, including me directing all the action separately and everything else. And, 35 days, okay. We might have to go down to 33. I said, we could probably do 33. And then you eventually arrive on location to start scouting, and you speak to the first AD, and he turns around and he says, so 25-day schedule. What? And you go, no, it's not 25. We talked about 33. Yeah, but the producer came in. He says, you could handle it in 25 days. Wow. And I said, well, but that's going to be almost impossible to do this movie in 25 days. It's all aboard. It's on board ships. On board a ship. And we only have the ship for 3.5 days. The exterior of the ship, where they were running around on the deck, we only have it for 3.5 days, and that's
loads of
impossible.
action on that. Yeah.
Exactly, and I was shooting for about 8 hours one day, which on a sequence I thought would take 2 days, and I was allowed 8 hours to shoot it. So you have to be well planned. You have to go in with an open mind, and you do the best you can.
Obviously, the action so well in terms of your background, but I imagine you still plan the hell out of that and block it all, and work with Nick and the action stunt team and the people fighting with him to get those fights looking amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of rehearsal time given the fact it's a small indie, so to speak. It's not the same as, for argument's sake, when I did last summer, I worked with Tom Cruise for 3 months part-time and then another 4 months full-time before we started shooting a day. So that was the longest prep I've ever had on a movie, was, sort of almost 7 months of prep and training an actor for that long. And it, with something like Gladiator, Russell Crowe, I think we spent about 6 weeks of full-time training before we started choreographing the fights, and then everything was choreographed in advance. The same on Cinderella Man. He had months of training as a boxer. But this movie, of course, you come in and you've got maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks to put the fights together, rehearse them all, and then get them shot. So it's a lot faster scale. It's almost television scale. And nowadays, with a lot of the stuff that Netflix and HBO and all those guys are doing, it's, you have even more time on TV than you do on some of these independent movies. But yes, having shot a lot of this stuff, I can sort of adapt very quickly to making it work. So yeah, it was very, very tight, a 25-day schedule to shoot the whole movie. Yeah. But we managed. It was, it's a little undercovered in places, but hopefully nobody will notice.
Totally, I didn't notice. I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed the action. My performances I thought were outstanding. Really fun action film. And, you know, I think you did a cracking job, especially for 25 days. I know what goes into, you know, making a movie like that, and that's full on. So
we had a great cast. We did have a great cast. I mean, you know, Nick's so professional. I mean, literally, he's the first on set every day that he needs to be on set. Kevin Durand, I've probably known Kevin for 20 years, so I brought him on to be, and I knew he'd do a fantastic job as the assassin, a little off kilter but likable at the same time.
Very much so.
You know, Famke was great. Michael Imperioli. I mean, everybody all the way down. So, you know, it was LaMonica Garrett who played the main sort of the leader of the agents coming in, and you know, there's a lot of really good actors in the movie. So it was when you're dealing with good actors, it's a lot easier to move quickly.
Yes, absolutely. And with something like, did you have to get Nick into a certain mindset before certain shots, or was he, like you said, he seemed very prepared? Did you need to sort of go, okay, let's think about these little moments and how you'd direct the sort of more acting moments?
We'd always walk through everything before. I mean, we'd talk about it before we went on set, just him and myself and whoever else was involved in the scene. Mm-hmm. And then basically we'd walk through it and, you know, and what if I go over here? No, that's not going to work because of this. And we need to do this because I need you over there in a minute when the other actor comes into the door. And so, you know, we'd go through everything. We'd walk it all through. He's very collaborative. I get on very well with him. I don't see that there would be any problems. He's so professional. He's the first on set, always into makeup on time, everything. It's you know, there are some people that I know are difficult, having been in the industry for a long time, where they may be a little late or you know, whereas Nick's never been like that. I mean, well, I say never. I mean, the 2 movies I've done with him in the last sort of 8 years or so, I guess, but probably 8 years now. You know, he's so professional, same as Kevin. I mean, and Kevin's such a delight to be around. You know, he's just such a nice guy. Everybody loves him. And you know, he walks in with a smile on his face, and then all of a sudden he gets to work with his acting. The character comes through. And again, you know, you spend 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes here. It's kind of like, try it again, but just give me a little bit more sort of underlying. There's a sort of an off-kilter thing about this where the guy knows he's going to kill this guy in a moment, but he's having fun with him, and just tried a little bit more on the light side, tried a bit more of it. And you know, we had enough time to sort of play around a little bit, because Kevin came in quite late, and you know, we had to sort of get his character established pretty quickly. So you know, the first day that he came in, we took quite a little bit of time to try and find the heart of the character. But I think he did an amazing job.
I totally agree. So yeah, let's talk about the animals then, because obviously you've got this amazing animal work in there, and you know, in the Brazilian jungle, that's how it looks, and you've got this huge jaguar and you've got all these monkeys around. How did you work with animals?
Well, actually, the real animals are harder to work with than the CG animals. I can tell you that for sure, even though the CG animals are difficult, because you're never quite sure. You think you know where they're going to be, and you set the camera up and you sort of walk through it and everything else. But we didn't have enough money to do a proper previs. I'd done storyboards, and I was working through the storyboards, and I was very sort of methodical with that side of things, especially for argument's sake, the monkey attacking the cook in the kitchen. That one, you know, we had to make sure that the monkeys were exactly in the right place, his eye line's right, and then this monkey attacks from the left, and this one's coming from the right, and then there's another one coming from the ground up at the same time as he's trying to get this guy off his back. And so, you know, we went through it, and I had some very good help from the special visual effects guys. I mean, Walt Jones in LA, and Francisco Cueto out in Puerto Rico. You know, they both, Walt did the jaguar and the monkeys and the tapirs, and Frankie's company in Puerto Rico did the snake and the ships and everything else. And between the two of them, I think, you know, given how tight everything was, they did an amazing job.
Yeah, absolutely did. Any advice for working with animals?
Give yourself plenty of time and try not to get frustrated. I mean, the most frustrating moment in the whole movie for us was working with the parrot, because we, obviously it was a real parrot and we were trying to get it to fly from A to B and land and then do something with its arms. And we had 2 parrot trainers and a parrot that we flew in from, I think from Florida, if I'm correct. And they came in, we chatted about it for a few days. He's got to do this, he's got to do that. They went off, they tried to get him trained up in the short amount of time we had. And then, there were some moments which happened very quickly and other moments where, as an actor, it's difficult working around them, because you're trying to say a line, waiting for the parrot to react, and then trying to, as soon as the parrot does it, you have to get the next line. So Nick, who had most of the work with the parrot, would be, saying his line, the parrot wouldn't react. So he'd have to quickly try and get back in and start again, because a lot of the time I would just let the camera run with those things in case the parrot did it at the time. I was trying not to do the standard cutaways, so that it's, basically just put it on the parrot and don't worry about. So I was trying to get Nick and the parrot in the same shot at the same time, so it felt a lot more organic and real, as opposed to just doing those cutaways that you always see with these things, and because they are so difficult to do. But occasionally we had to do those cutaways, and other times we were lucky enough to be able to get the parrot to do what we wanted when we wanted to do it. But I think that was probably Nick's most frustrating moments in the movie, when he was acting with the parrot.
I can imagine. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. It's absolute joy. Primal is out, digital download on the 10th of February and DVD on the 17th of February. It's getting some cracking reviews. Nicolas Cage is amazing. Your cast are amazing. And Nick Powell, you've done a brilliant job. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining us on this week's podcast. And I'll speak to you soon. I look forward to your next film, and we'll chat again then.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, Nick. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, wow. That was Nick Powell. What a delight that was. So many lovely Nick Cage stories. And wow, isn't it lovely that he's a really nice guy? I love that. I really do. You'll hear all these stories about certain actors or certain people that aren't great, or they might be difficult. It's just proven he's not. And I like that. I like demystifying that kind of stuff. Thank you so much, Nick, for your time. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you learned a lot from this week's Filmmakers Podcast. I know I did. Next week's podcast, like I say, is with Kate Madison, the director behind the fantastic 50 million hits web series Ren, The Girl with the Mark. She is crowdfunding right now. Support if you can. Until next Tuesday, you can make your indie film. Just know who your audience is. And if you are lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send that elevator back down. Until next Tuesday, take care. Bye-bye.